morning. Thank you all for joining and being so early and prompt. So welcome to our inaugural conference of the Schools, Health, and Libraries Broadband Coalition, which, as you know, we lovingly call the SHLB Coalition. So we're very pleased that all of you have joined us for this summit to celebrate the enormous progress of the Broadband Technology Opportunities Program, the BTOP program. We're especially pleased that so many anchor institution representatives from across the country have come to Washington so that you can share your stories with us, describing how you are bringing the benefits of broadband to your local communities. Today you'll hear several really very powerful stories of valuable projects funded by the BTOP program to support broadband adoption, to promote digital literacy, and to build next-generation broadband infrastructure that will serve our communities for decades. You will hear how public libraries are installing new computers and setting up broadband training centers that they make available to the public, to the general public, free of charge. You will hear how K-12 elementary schools are bringing adults into schools after hours to learn how to use computers and online services for job training, parenting advice, health research, and many other essential services. You will hear how private sector companies and nonprofit research and education networks and municipalities are using BTOP grants to lay fiber optic cable and wireless networks to provide next generation broadband services to hospitals, rural health clinics, universities, and community colleges, schools, libraries, public safety access points, and literally hundreds of other community anchor institutions. Of course, the most touching aspect of these stories are the personal ones, the stories of the individuals and the people who are benefiting from the work that you are doing. I'm sure your heart will be warmed by the stories, the personal stories of learning and economic revitalization that are taking place every day as a result of this program. One of my personal favorite stories is the story of a woman who had to postpone her wedding because she lost her job and couldn't afford to buy the dress that she wanted for the wedding. But after a few weeks of regular visits to the library and posting her resume on monster.com, she found a job and the wedding was back on. So this is just one example of how the BTOP program and the work that anchor institutions are doing around the country are changing lives, literally making America a better place. So I must offer one apology, however. The great stories you will hear from the podium and the dais up here today are just a few of the many, many great stories that are taking place around the country. In fact, in this audience today, we're scheduled to have representatives of some equally worthwhile projects that we just couldn't fit into the program. So for instance, there are representatives here today from the District of Columbia, which received a PCC grant, an SBA grant, and an infrastructure grant. Also in the audience from the fabulous Freedom Rings SBA project, serving the inner city neighborhoods of Philadelphia. Also in the audience, Horizon Telecom, a local telephone company in Ohio that has partnered with the R&E network there, ORNet, on an infrastructure project to serve 600 anchor institutions in Appalachia. And even from the University of Alaska and the Alaska State Library are joining us here today for this conference. And they received both a PCC grant and an SBA grant to bring distance learning and online education to remote Alaskan native villages. So I wish we could have found room for everyone to tell your stories from the podium today, but I encourage you to seek out these individuals in the audience and have those communications and those conversations with them because they have really great stories to tell as well. I also wish to acknowledge the great work being done not just in the BTOP program, but in the BIP program, Broadband Initiatives program administered by the RUS. The BIP recipients are largely rural telephone companies operating in areas where there's no broadband service available at all. The BIP program also encourages recipients of grants to serve community anchor institutions, and we applaud the work that they are doing. So while we have many, many great stories to tell and much great work is going on, there's also much more to do. So for instance, when NTIA released its national broadband map just last month, it found that community anchor institutions are, quote unquote, largely underserved.